It's very much led by the mentee in what they want and then finding time where you can do that. I've had mentees that wanted our whole interaction to be done via email and telephone.
At the moment, my only real commitment is my baby, so it's quite easy for me to fit it in. I just have to find childcare, which is my mother-in-law. So it's not so difficult at the moment.
Actually, it perhaps helped a bit being more distant, and they seemed to benefit from it, and the feedback was very good.
To try to minimise interruptions, we both turn off our phones and make sure that there's nothing else pressing that's going to happen during the time we've got together, and we agree how long we're going to spend talking as well. It's tricky with venue because if we are in a public place, it's difficult to control outside influences.
I think the mentoring agreements are useful to just set a few basically ground rules for the relationship and how the relationship is going to move forward. For me, the two most important things are whether there's confidentiality between mentor and mentee and what are the conditions of confidentiality. And then the second part is if the mentoring relationship doesn't work, what happens then? And the critical part of that will be the possibility of just having a no-blame divorce and not carrying the relationship that's not helpful for either mentee or mentor.
To get the best out of a mentoring relationship, it's an agreed agenda between mentor and mentee.
The whole point about having a mentoring relationship is that it's mentee-led. So I think the agenda should be based on the expectations, aspirations and concerns of a mentee.
So I might think about referring my mentee on if there was a problem that I felt that I didn't have the skills to deal with, or if I felt that our relationship wasn't working. I'd get feedback from my mentee after every session to see how she feels that our relationship is and how the process is working. And I've also encouraged her to contact the programme leaders if she doesn't feel that it's working but doesn't feel able to tell me.
So we've set up the foundation scheme where the F2s are mentoring the F1s. Now the F2s have only been doctors when they started for a year, so there's a lot of things they're not going to be comfortable with. So instantly we set up a governance scheme where the mentor's educational supervisor, if I as a mentor, as an F2, newly qualified doctor, a fairly newly qualified doctor, had an issue and didn't know what to give advice to an even more recently qualified doctor, I would go to my educational supervisor, and our educational supervisors are very well trained, and they all said that's absolutely no trouble, it probably won't even happen.
I think if it becomes clear that the mentee has got, for example, a mental health problem or a physical illness, or for example they're caring for someone in their family and they're not able to cope with that, I think your job there as a mentor is to obviously listen to what the problem is at the time, but signpost the mentee to the appropriate support, because again, part of your role as a mentor is to know where the limits of what you can provide are.
I try to structure the mentoring meetings around TGROW, an acronym that I learnt on the mentoring course with the Royal College of Paediatrics. It's quite tricky to stick to that, and certainly sometimes you feel like you're reviewing what's happened at the meeting before rather than starting a new problem. So it's not always easy to follow that model, but that is the model that I try to follow. Yeah, so the TGROW model is just a framework to structure it. So you think about the topic that you want to talk about, which is mentee-led, and then the mentee thinks about a goal that they want, and you then consider what the reality is and try and understand the actual truth of the situation. And then think about what options are available to the trainee, and then think about the will or the action, what you're actually going to do about it. But it's all trainee mentee led. So so it's just about asking the questions to get them to think about those things.
I think the role of structure in the mentoring relationship is quite important, and you need to know what you want to discuss and how you want to discuss it. At the same time, though, on some occasions, I don't think that just having a coffee and a chat is necessarily a bad thing, because that can lead to new ideas, that can lead to new challenges and new ways of thinking for the mentee. And you don't necessarily need a structure for that to happen. So sometimes it's good to deviate a bit and have a bit of a general chat. Maybe that would identify new problems that the mentee wants to deal with.
When considering boundaries in a mentoring relationship, I think you have to be quite disciplined, because it's a supportive, close, reflective relationship that you're working on. You have to be clear that this isn't a friendship, and that you're actually undertaking a professional role, and maintaining that focus, although the mentee, of course, can bring personal problems as well as work-related problems. The boundaries that I think need to be made clear very early on are where there's a risk to the mentee or to others, and we have to be very clear that we've got a duty to act on those, and I think that is something that you have to make clear. I think everybody can benefit from a mentoring relationship. It's particularly as we have more targets placed upon us, particularly as we become more isolated, the increased pressures of working. Having a space where you can discuss and try to understand your thoughts and feelings and make sense of them. A mentor is an ideal place for that to happen.
I recently read an article by a very eminent neurosurgeon that I've been practicing for quite a long time, and what he did was he brought a retired neurosurgeon to come and watch him in theatre and operate and give him some tips as to what he should be doing differently. And although that's not the perfect example of mentoring, it just goes to show that no matter how old you are or how experienced you are, there is always room to develop, both professionally and personally.
I think that anybody would benefit from mentoring. I don't think it should be just for people who are in difficulty. The concept of mentoring is really about making the most of your environment, and all of us can benefit from that. So thinking about your work-life balance or thinking about your goals and options. I think it's really easy just to go with the flow, but mentoring really makes you think about what's going on in your life and to strive to be more.
It's really, really tempting to give advice to mentees, and it can take a lot of discipline not to give advice, but really you're there to allow them to find the answer. You're facilitating them finding the solution, because only through that way is the best way for them to grow and develop.
I think it's fine to give advice, but if there are lots of things that you just can't advise someone else to do, you can just listen and let them talk.
when it comes to giving advice in a mentor and a mentee relationship, I think both the mentor and the mentee have to be very careful, especially when there's a large gap between the mentor and the mentee in terms of seniority. For example, if you have a consultant mentor for an F1 mentee, that can change the mentee into being almost like a protege of the mentor, and that's not necessarily what we want to achieve, because mentorship is not only about your career progression, it's also about how you develop as a person.
I have really enjoyed being a mentor. I've enjoyed feeling like I'm facilitating someone to make changes that are going to make their life better. It's a totally different thing to working in clinical paediatrics. It's a much more measured process than responding to emergencies and working in the clinical setting, and so it gives a really nice balance.
It's made me enjoy using the knowledge I have with others who I don't know.
Being a mentor is a really great thing to do, and I would recommend it to other people.
So I think as doctors, we like helping people, so mentoring is part of helping people, and it's helping colleagues rather than helping patients. I think in medicine we're tremendously focused on helping patients, and we're not always nice and kind to our colleagues, whether they're doctors, nurses, admin staff, etc. And I think mentoring really brings us to using our skills with our colleagues.
For me, the fun part of being a mentor is to having your own thought processes challenged, because both the mentee and mentor would have different ideas about certain problems, certain dilemmas. And it could be equally developing for the mentor as well as the mentee. And that, I think, is the key part of being a mentor, in that something that you think is true for all cases might not end up not being true for some of them. And having those ideas challenged is the fun part about being a mentor.
I think for me is about, I think giving back is one thing, because I do feel that the people that I have had mentoring me have really shaped or helped shape who I am. And I often think that if you can help an individual turn a situation around, it can really make a massive difference to their career. It can only make them more assertive and more able to deal with difficult situations the further down their career they go.
I think to spread a passion for something, you just have to be enthusiastic yourself and set a role model, and people need to see you doing mentoring.
The most effective way is the thing that drew me into mentoring was having my own mentor, and having a positive experience of being mentored is, makes you want to kind of pass that on.